Revealed, CEO's incredible discovery of Waitress's hidden kindness transforms 100 lives forever. In the heart of a bustling Midwestern town, under the buzz of a flickering neon sign, Sarah worked tirelessly at Rosie's Diner. At 35, she was a single mother juggling long shifts and teenage angst, serving home-cooked meals to weary locals. With every plate she carried, she wore a brave face, her heart heavy but fierce. Little did she know, this rainy afternoon would flip her world upside down. As the rain pounded against the diner's windows, in walked Michael, a high-powered CEO, drenched and impatient. He glanced around, eyeing the simple decor and the comforting smell of fresh pies. He just wanted a quick bite. But the moment he saw Sarah slipping her last dollar to a sweet elderly veteran, something shifted. Her face glowed with kindness, brightening the room more than the neon lights outside. It was an act of generosity that stopped him in his tracks. He leaned back in his booth, heart pounding, mind racing. Could someone like her, with so little, decide to give it all away? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Intrigued, Michael chose to stay, observing the warmth that enveloped the diner, a symphony of laughter, clinking silverware, and heartfelt stories. Each regular shared tales of their joys and struggles, mundane yet meaningful, as Sarah flitted from table to table, her smile melting away their worries. Those moments reflected a community that thrived on connection, so different from the sterile boardrooms Michael was accustomed to. As he learned more about her, it struck him how she balanced work and the weight of motherhood. Jake, her son, often sat hunched over his books, yearning for a future brighter than the one they hovered just above poverty. His heart ached for them. Could he do something to help? Could he offer them a chance at something more? Michael felt a stirring, a call to action. He couldn't fix all the world's problems, but maybe he could start with the diner. He dreamed of a plan to uplift Sarah and her community, change their tides, and create ripples they could all ride. But as he laid the groundwork, whispers began to spread. Resentment stirred as some questioned his intentions. Was he giving or patronizing? Did he truly want to help, or was this a mere publicity stunt? Sarah faced the growing attention with mixed feelings. The diner was her home, her family. The thought of meddling outsiders stung. Could Michael's intervention bring true justice? Or would it fracture her community even further? The storm outside echoed the turmoil within her as she found herself torn between pride and the desperate need for change. She squeezed her eyes shut tight, breathing in the scent of coffee and frying bacon. Hope flickered alongside doubt, and she struggled with it. As the clock ticked, tension continued to rise, leading to a confrontation that could change everything. Could a waitress's hidden kindness really transform lives? Would she take the leap into the unknown? As they stood at the precipice of change, the community held its breath, caught in a moment that shifted life as they knew it. The rain finally began to taper off, leaving the air fresh and crisp. But inside Rosie's Diner, the atmosphere was electric. Sarah stood behind the counter, her heart racing as she overheard snippets of conversations among the patrons. Rumors flew fast, words like help and wealthy flickered in and out of focus. Most regulars welcomed Michael's presence with a mix of hope and skepticism. Could he really mean what he seemed to promise? Jake, her son, sat in the back booth, slouched over his homework, oblivious to the undercurrents swirling in the diner. At just 16, he felt the pressure of the world on his shoulders. Sarah wished she could shield him from it, but the reality was cruel. She knew they were at a precipice, every choice weighing heavier than the last. In some corners of the diner, whispers grew louder. What does he really want? One older lady asked, her eyes narrowing as she glanced at Michael. No one does anything out of kindness these days. Another chimed in, I heard he is planning something big. Just watch. Watching Michael was like watching a man trapped in a gilded cage. He moved with purpose, yet the tension in his shoulders betrayed the uncertainty he felt. His idea was noble, yet how could he present it without being misjudged? His mind raced as he envisioned revitalizing not only Rosie's diner but the entire community. A scholarship for Jake, better resources for the diner, maybe even a small community center where families could gather and learn together. The more Michael thought, the more his vision solidified, yet the more complex the path to achieving it became. Then, as if the universe had chosen that moment to intervene, Sarah's gaze met his across the room, a flicker of awareness passing between them. It was a silent communication, an acknowledgement of the weight they both carried. Michael felt something shift within him, an urge to bridge that gap, to confront Sarah, to lay the plan bare and let her decide if there was a way forward together. But before he could gather his courage, Sarah was approached by a group of her fellow waitresses. They appeared animated yet concerned, their voices a mixture of worry and curiosity. "Sarah, have you heard what they're saying about him?" "I just don't want the diner to change," one said. Her knitting needles paused mid-stitch. "Change isn't always bad," Sarah countered, but even she felt the twinge of doubt. She didn't want to draw unwanted attention to her beloved diner or disrupt the fragile community she had come to cherish. As evening approached, the rain gave way to a soft golden glow from the setting sun, spilling through the restaurant's windows and illuminating the last remnants of the day. The patrons began to trickle out, the energy in the diner shifting from bustling to melancholy. She could sense that decisions loomed, that some choice perhaps monumental was brewing on the horizon. When Sarah finally decided to confront Michael, she felt her heart pounding against her chest. She stood by his booth, breath caught between her lungs and uncertainty weighing heavily in the air. "Can we talk?" she managed to say, her voice trembling ever so slightly. Michael met her gaze, his entire being alight with hope and trepidation. The moment felt charged, poised on the brink of something undiscovered. He could feel the eyes of the community watching, their hopes and fears swirling like the autumn leaves outside. As Sarah slid into the booth, uncertainty hung around them, mingling with the sense of warm food and coffee. What would they uncover together? Would their conversation spark a new beginning, or ignite old wounds? The diner went quiet, everyone leaning in, eager and anxious, holding their breath as the future writhed just out of reach. Sarah gathered her thoughts, the warmth of the diner suddenly feeling cold around her. It was just the two of them now, the clattering dishes and murmurs fading into the backdrop. She looked into Michael's eyes, searching for solidity in the whirlwind of emotions. "I'm sure you've heard the rumors," she began slowly, the weight of every word pressing down on her. "People are worried about what changes you might bring here. They don't trust easily." She paused, forcing herself to breathe, remembering how fiercely protective the community was. "It's not just a diner. This is home." Michael leaned forward, his expression earnest. "I understand, Sarah. I do. But I'm not here to change what you have. I want to build on it, to help. Can you see that?" He reached for her hand, a gesture that surprised them both. The simple touch ignited a spark of connection. In that moment, they were two people bound by the same hope and fear. It was intimate and vulnerable. "Help? It sounds so easy," Sarah said, shaking her head. "But this place has been what it is for so long. Can you really promise that your plans won't ruin it?" Her heart ached, she longed for change to bring good, but the fear of loss weighed heavily. The diner door swung open, followed by the sound of footsteps, breaking their bubble. A new patron walked in, a middle-aged woman with a weathered face that told stories of struggle. She waved at Sarah, and for a brief moment, Sarah's attention shifted, her maternal instinct pulling her toward the woman. Michael took that moment to collect himself. He watched Sarah, the way she turned back to her life, her loving energy reaching out to others. It hit him like a wave. The purpose he sought to realize was deeper than numbers and plans. It was about community, and she was at the heart of it. "Sarah, I need you to trust me," he said, his tone softening. "What if I told you I want to start by establishing a scholarship right here? For local kids like Jake. All I need is your support, not your entire soul." Sarah's brow furrowed. "Jake? He's my priority. What do you know about our world?" She let the doubt slip out, a protective instinct flaring, his eyes darkened with a passion that could light a fire. "I know all too well what it's like to believe you don't matter, to wrestle with dreams that feel unattainable. I've walked that path, and I want to help others find theirs. But I need you to help me show them it's possible." Their gazes locked again, each sensing the tidal wave of raw emotion pulling at them. The diner felt smaller, filled with unspoken words and the weight of expectation. Around them, the whispers returned. The other patrons sensed something monumental rising between the two. Some exchanged concerned looks, while others leaned closer, straining to catch the fragile tide of hope cascading over the cold reality. "I want to believe you," Sarah murmured, her voice edged with longing. "But I can't risk everything. What if your promises fade like smoke?" Just then, a noticeable silence fell over the diner. It was Jake, emerging from his homework, catching the tension brewing in the air. He glanced back and forth between his mother and Michael, sensing the weight of their conversation. "Mom? Isn't a time we talked about?" His voice trailed off as Michael met his gaze. In that fleeting moment, the reality pieced itself into a puzzle, a shared destiny waiting to unfold. What would Sarah decide? Would she let fear dictate her future or take a leap of faith? Jake's naive innocence seemed to be the perfect balance against the weight of tradition. As the last rays of sunlight glimmered through the windows, illuminating their faces, Sarah's heart raced. The stakes grew higher, and with a breath that felt heavy with meaning, she asked, "So, how do we start?" A hesitant smile stretched across Michael's face. But as they started to share ideas, the door swung open again, this time with a force that felt almost predestined. A frantic voice echoed, "You need to see this. Something has happened at the old school." The diner erupted in a flurry of whispers and nervous glances. The newcomers stood in the doorway, breathless and wide-eyed, clutching a crumpled piece of paper. Sarah could feel the tension shift instantly as every patron leaned in closer. "What happened?" Sarah asked, instinctively moving toward the woman, her heart already racing. The woman pushed through the diner's air, her presence inexplicably urgent. "They found an old-time capsule at the school," she exclaimed, her voice strained but full of excitement. "Some kids were digging in the yard for a project and uncovered it. Inside, there were letters from us, from the townsfolk, and images of what our community used to be." Sarah glanced at Michael, a mix of confusion and curiosity flickering in her eyes. He raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Letters?" he echoed softly, moving closer to the woman. "What kind of letters?" The woman nodded eagerly, and Sarah noticed a glimmer of hope in the woman's eyes as she spoke. "Letters to our future selves. Hearts full of dreams, aspirations, even some concerns about where the town would go. They were filled with love words that spoke of how we were going to build a better life for everyone." It was beautiful. A low murmur spread across the diner as people exchanged looks. Old memories began to clamor for attention, rekindling long-forgotten stories. "Did you see what was written?" someone from the back asked, their voice barely above a whisper, laced with a hint of nostalgia. "Some of the kids read a few aloud while I was there. They were impactful, touching. Like a glimpse of the past shining back at us." The woman took a deep breath, as if collecting her thoughts. One letter was especially poignant. It spoke of unity, of how we could overcome any hardship together as long as we held on to that spirit. As the woman spoke, Sarah felt a warmth envelop her. Community, hope, and possibility. They were the very essence of the diner she cherished. She looked at Jake, who had now moved to her side, eyes wide with wonder. "Mom, can we see it?" he asked, excitement bubbling in his voice. Before Sarah could respond, Michael took a decisive step forward. "What can we do to help?" he asked, a newfound determination igniting in his voice. He glanced at Sarah as if to say that maybe this was the catalyst they needed to unite the community. "Let us organize a gathering," the woman proposed, her face alive with inspiration. "We can read the letters, share the memories, and remind ourselves why this town matters. It could be a way to bridge the past and future." The words hung in the air as light from the setting sun bathed the diner in a warm glow. Sarah felt her pulse quicken. This was the moment, the kind of thing that could transform lives, even hers. The connection between the present and their dreams, embodied in a time capsule, felt electric. "Let us do it," Sarah said, her voice full of resolve. "Let us bring everyone together." As cheers erupted around her, she felt Michael's hand brush against hers briefly, a silent affirmation of their shared journey. Yet as excitement took hold, a shadow flickered in Sarah's heart. Who was she to stir old memories? What if the past brought more pain than she was prepared to face? Just then, a muted crash echoed from the back of the diner. Sarah's gaze snapped towards the sound, dread creeping in as fear settled uneasily in her stomach. "Is everything okay back there?" she called, her voice slightly trembling. A familiar voice whimpered, "No, it can't be." She recognized it instantly. It was Marge, an elderly patron known for her unwavering support. Whatever had upset her was important. The air shifted again, filled with uncertainty, thick as fog. "What is it, Marge?" Sarah asked, urgency creeping into her tone. Marge appeared from behind the counter, shaking, holding a fragile letter in her trembling hands. It's the letter I wrote," she whispered, voice choked with emotion. "And it's not the only one." As the diner held its breath, Sarah felt her heart race again. What was in that letter? What secrets were hidden away, waiting to break free? And would the revelation forge new connections or tear old wounds wide open? Every eye in the diner pinned on Marge, waiting for the storm to break. Marge took a shaky step forward, the letter trembling in her grasp as though it were alive. The diner remained silent, a collective breath held in anticipation. Sarah felt the knot in her stomach tighten. What storm was brewing within that piece of paper? "Please, Marge, share with us," she urged gently, her own heart racing to understand the weight behind the letter. Marge's hands fluttered as she opened the fragile paper, her breath hitching. "This," she began, her voice barely above a whisper, "was written years ago, back when I was just as young as these kids here today." She glanced around the diner, her once bright spirit dimmed by time. "I had hopes and dreams too, but I also had fears. I poured everything into these words." With a deep breath, she began to read, her voice trembling but growing steadier with each line. "Dear future me," she read, eyes glistening with unshed tears. "If you are reading this, I hope you have seen our dreams come to life. I hope you remember our community as a place of joy, love, and support, but I fear things may have changed. Times are growing tough. Please don't forget those who stood by you." The words struck a chord, sending ripples of emotion through the diner. Sarah could see the glances exchanged, stories igniting in the eyes of those who remembered their own letters, their own hopes. Marge continued, her voice breaking through the heavy air. "If you ever lose sight of what really matters, just look back. Remember that unity is our strength. We are stronger together." As Marge finished, the diner erupted, each patron reflecting on their own lives, their own fears and hopes. A wave of nostalgia washed over the room, binding them together like a warm embrace. Sarah noticed Jake's eyes glistening, touched by the heartfelt words. But then Marge, still holding the letter, whispered, "There's more." Sarah leaned in closer, sensing the tension rise again. "More?" she questioned, fear and curiosity battling within her. "Yes. I found another one earlier today, tucked alongside this one. It was written by someone else." Marge's hands quivered as she unfurled another letter, this one stained and fragile from age. The crowd leaned in, breathless. "Who was it from?" asked someone in the back. Marge looked around as if searching for the courage, then spoke the name, "Lily Bennett." Gasps erupted, the name stirring memories embedded deep in the hearts of everyone in the diner. Lily, the vibrant girl who always dreamed of being a writer, who had mysteriously disappeared almost 2 decades ago. The room grew colder as her name hovered in the air, a ghost from the past. "What does it say?" Sarah urged, as the weight of history pressed on them. Marge's hands clasped the letter tightly. "I don't know," she said, a look of mixed terror and hope in her eyes. "But it could change everything. We must read it." Sarah's pulse quickened. Could this be the moment that unlocked old wounds or bridged the gap of years? The unanswered questions, the pain, and the memories surged like a tide, the promise of transformation hanging in the balance. "Let us hear it," someone called from the back, and the group buzzed with anticipation. As Marge unfolded the second letter, the diner held its collective breath once more, waiting for the pain of the past to resonate in their present lives. "Please let it be something good," Sarah pleaded silently, glancing at Michael, who was as captivated as she was. The sound of crinkled paper echoed in the stillness, ready to unleash a torrent of revelations. What secrets lay within those old words of Lily? And would they bring the community closer together or shatter all they thought they knew? Marge's fingers shook as she delicately unfolded the ancient letter, the paper fragile and delicate, as if it might disintegrate with any sudden movement. Each crinkle echoed through the diner, sharp against the heavy silence. The anticipation in the air was electric. Every eye was trained on Marge, waiting for her to reveal the words that had lingered in the shadows for years. The first line was barely above a whisper, but it felt like an explosion in the quiet of the diner. "Dear Diary," she read, her voice barely steady. "Today marks another chapter in my life. I can hear their whispers, I can feel their judgment. It scares me." Gasps rippled through the room, as Lilia's vulnerable admission opened a floodgate of emotions. Sarah could feel the weight of each word push against her heart. She glanced at her friends, their faces were painted with shock and understanding. Lily had been their classmate, their friend, but what they hadn't known was the ghost of her pain, the silent battle she had fought when no one was looking. Marge took a deep breath and continued, her voice gathering strength. "I dream about writing stories that touch people's hearts, but I wonder if I'll ever find the courage to share them. Sometimes, I feel lost among the noise. I just want to be seen, to be known." Tears brimmed in Marge's eyes as she recited the confessions, and the diner felt a collective ache. Memories flooded back of a time when all they knew of Lily was her laughter, her brilliant smile, and her passion for the written word. But this glimpse into her hidden world stirred up a host of unanswered questions. Lily was so brave, Sarah murmured, her heart breaking for the girl whose voice had gone quiet. She looked around the diner, seeing empathy reflected in the faces of those surrounding her. This was not just an old memory being unearthed, this was a reckoning. Marge read on, each word digging deeper. "If anyone finds this, know that you carry the weight of my thoughts. Life can be heavy, but don't let that stop you from persisting. It's your story to write just as it has been mine. Even in darkness, there's hope and love." The words hung in the air, heavy yet hopeful. The weight of Lily's struggles had been palpable, but her tenacity shone through. Sarah felt a warmth spread through the room, a spark igniting somewhere deep within everyone's heart. It was a reminder that they weren't alone, that they never had been. "And," Marge hesitated, her voice trembling, "there's one last part." The eyes of the diner widened, anxious for what might follow. "I've started a collection of stories, and each story is a piece of me," she continued. "As I've been writing, I've hidden away pieces of my heart. I buried it in safe places in our town." Almost as if a wave had crashed through, murmurs of confusion and excitement filled the diner. "What kind of pieces?" someone shouted from the back. Marge's face lit up with a mix of nostalgia and determination. "Little treasures, things that represent each moment of light and shadow in our lives. I hoped that one day, we'd find them again. Lily's words reminded me, it's time to do just that." A thrill coursed through the crowd. Questions swirled. Where were these treasures? Were they fragments of Lily's dreams, Marge's memories, or the hidden stories of everyone in the diner? As hope mingled with uncertainty, Sarah took a deep breath. "We have to find them," she exclaimed, enthusiasm rippling through the room. Marge nodded, a look of resolution flooding her face. "It's about time we face our past together, don't you think?" Laughter broke through the tension, and in that moment, the diner transformed into something more than just a gathering place. It became a sanctuary for healing, a hub of rediscovery of identities long lost. But as excitement swirled, a new question began to emerge: what would they uncover from their pasts, and how would it reshape their community moving forward? The answers remained hidden, awaiting their brave hearts to seek them out. The chatter in the diner buzzed like a swarm of bees, energy crackling as plans began to form. Sarah felt a surge of determination. "How about we split into teams?" she suggested, her eyes brightening. "We can cover more ground that way. Each of us can take a story and see where it leads." Marge nodded vigorously. "Yes. We can gather the pieces, share them, and maybe even write together. Let us make this more than just a treasure hunt. Let us turn it into a writing festival." A wave of excitement washed over the group. The diner transformed into a map of possibilities. Tables that once served coffee and pie now represented creativity and connection. Sarah could see her friends lighting up, stepping out of their shells as they threw ideas back and forth. Who knows what we'll find? Lily's old friend, Mia, said, her enthusiasm infectious. Let us discover our own stories while we're at it. Maybe we have more hidden pieces than we thought. Absolutely, Marge said, her passion clenching fists and curling her lips into a proud smile. We all have something to offer. Let us dig deep, share, and inspire each other as we go. Sarah felt the weight of expectation lift. This wasn't just about Lily's past, this was a chance for everyone to find their voices. The thought resonated within her, and she couldn't wait to piece together the scattered, forgotten aspects of their community. As they made plans, the initial shock of Lily's letter began to morph into something beautiful. They were going to reclaim the narrative. They were going to rewrite the story of their lives in unison, each word, each joy, each sorrow stitched together into a vibrant tapestry of their history. The crowd slowly dissipated, but the energy lingered. Sarah stayed behind, helping Marge clean up the tables and lingering over the letter. Marge, she said softly, do you think Lily knew how much she affected us? How her words could spark this kind of light? Marge wiped a tear from her eye, and for a moment, sorrow mixed with hope. Maybe she was always aware, or maybe she didn't realize just how far her whispered thoughts could reach. The two stood in silence, holding on to the weight of that knowledge, before they resumed their work. As the sun began to set, it painted the diner in rich golds and reds. The glow filled the space with warmth. Let us meet tomorrow, same time? Sarah asked, glancing at the clock. The sense of community was tangible, and her heart soared with the thrill of what lay ahead. Yes, Marge agreed, her smile radiant. Let the treasure hunt begin. Hours passed, and they all left with a sense of resolve. But later that night, as Sarah lay in bed, a thought rumbled through her mind. If they were digging into their pasts, what if they uncovered things best left hidden? Would some stories bring healing, while others would unravel their fragile bonds? With a flicker of worry, she reminded herself that facing the truth could be ugly, but staying silent could be even worse. As sleep began to creep in, a question echoed in her thoughts. Would they all be brave enough to confront the buried pieces of their lives, or would fear win out, leaving them forever changed? The next morning brought bright sunshine and renewed energy. Unbeknownst to them, a revelation was lurking just around the corner, and it would change everything. The soft light of dawn poured through Sarah's window, spilling warmth across her room. She blinked awake, feeling the thrill of the day ahead buzzing in her chest. With the promise of a treasure hunt to reclaim the stories of their community, the worries of last night faded. Today wasn't just about Lily. It felt bigger than that. It was about each of them. After a quick breakfast, Sarah met Marge outside the diner. The air was crisp, the scent of fresh coffee wafting through the doors, calling them in. One by one, their friends arrived, each carrying an energy that was almost palpable. There were no hesitations now, no lingering doubts. They were ready, equipped with notebooks and the kind of hope that came with a fresh start. All right, everyone, let us gather around, Marge called, her voice brimming with excitement. The group formed a semicircle, anticipation on their faces. We need to decide how we're going to split up. As Sarah looked around the circle, she spotted familiar faces: Mia, who still had a streak of enthusiasm from last night, Jack, who usually kept to himself but looked eager, and even Sam, who always had a quick joke ready but was now focused, eyes sparkling with purpose. I think we should follow Lily's footsteps first, Jack suggested, breaking into the chatter. If we can gather stories linked to her, it might spark more connections. Good idea. Sarah nodded. We can start with her favorite places around town. It might lead us to people who knew her well. Everyone pair up and think about where you'd like to explore. The pairs broke off chatting animatedly, sharing ideas about the stories they hoped to uncover. Sarah teamed up with Mia. The two headed towards the old park where Lily used to spend her afternoons. Rough stone paths lined with overgrown grass and wildflowers felt both familiar and untouched, as if they too had stories waiting to be told. As they walked, Mia's voice danced with excitement. What if we find something that Lily wrote? Like diaries or letters? You know, something really personal. Wow, imagine if we did. Sarah mused, fingers tracing along the rough bark of a nearby tree. What if we found her poetry or even her sketches? She could have left so much behind without us knowing. The park was an echo of memories, its swings creaked gently in the breeze, and the scent of wet earth filled the air. They searched, carefully peering into hollow trunks and beneath benches, sharing stories of their own childhood adventures. Suddenly, they stumbled upon an old weathered box partially buried under leaves near the base of a gnarled oak tree. Sarah's heart raced. Could it be? They knelt down, brushing away the dirt and debris. As they pulled the box into view, Sarah felt a mix of eagerness and fear. Should we open it? Mia asked, eyes wide with curiosity. Definitely, Sarah breathed. She fumbled with the latch, her hands trembling slightly. Did it hold treasures or secrets? As it popped open, the scent of aged paper wafted out, and Sarah's heart thudded. Inside were stacks of notes, sketches of faces and places, all intertwined with the strands of Lily's life. What if? Mia whispered, her voice trailing off, realization sinking in. Sarah looked at her, breath caught in her throat. What if this changes everything? As they gingerly sifted through the contents, a dark red envelope caught Sarah's eye, distinct in its vibrancy against the aging papers. Its edges seemed frayed, grasping tight onto its secrets. With a heavy breath, she reached for it, compelled by an inexplicable tug at her heart. What they uncovered within could very well redefine everything they thought they knew about Lily and themselves. Would the revelation bring them closer together, or would it tear them apart? With the weight of that red envelope in hand, one thing was certain: the past was about to speak loud and clear. Sarah's fingers traced the edges of the envelope, a mix of trepidation and excitement coursing through her veins. She could almost feel Lily's presence, the warmth of her laughter echoing in every creak of the park. What do you think is inside? Mia broke the silence, curiosity sparkling in her eyes. I don't know, but I have a feeling it's something important, Sarah replied, her voice barely above a whisper. Heart pounding, she slowly opened the envelope. The paper inside was thick, slightly yellowed with age. As she unfolded it, the unmistakable flourish of Lily's handwriting emerged, familiar yet distant. The note read, "To whoever finds this, if you're reading this, it means I am no longer here, and I want you to know something. Life is filled with moments that don't seem important at the time, but they shape us. You've probably heard the stories of laughter, of dreams shared, of sadness, too. I hope you remember the joy. Find the hidden stories in our town, because each one matters." Sarah felt her breath hitch, her heart swelling. It was incredible, intimate. She knew we'd be looking for her stories, she said, glancing at Mia, who looked just as enraptured. Mia's voice trembled. But why would she leave a message like this? It feels like a puzzle. Sarah continued reading, her eyes darting over the lines. Each word resonated deeper than the last. The note spoke of places in town where stories nestled like old friends, of people who might carry snippets of Lily with them, stories worth uncovering. It was like Lily was guiding them. What if we follow this? Sarah suggested, excitement bubbling in her chest. It might lead us to more than we thought. Mia nodded eagerly, clutching the box tightly. This isn't just about finding Lily. It's about everyone who knew her, those whose lives she touched. Their focus shifted to the remaining contents of the box, flipping through sketches that captured the essence of their small town: the fountain, the library, the diner, with pencil strokes that mirrored a life lived fully. Here and there, they spotted sketches of friends, faces animated with laughter, which made Sarah smile broadly. This one looks like Jack. Mia giggled, pointing to a rough drawing that bore an uncanny resemblance. It felt like a warming connection, not just to Lily, but to their entire circle of friends. Just then, they heard footsteps approaching. Startled, they looked up to see Marge, Jack, and Sam, drawn by the excitement of their discovery. Their faces lit up as they caught sight of the open box. What is going on here? Marge asked, her voice laced with curiosity. It's a treasure from Lily, Sarah exclaimed, her voice vibrating with energy. She held up the envelope like a trophy, the words spilling over like a well of bottled-up emotion. She left us a message and sketches. There are stories here we need to find. Jack stepped forward, his usual reticence fading. Stories? What kind? One about the hidden corners of this town. Mia jumped in, her mind racing. places where Lily's spirit lives on. As they shared the note and its promise, the group leaned in closer, captivated. Each face reflected a mixture of hope, nostalgia, and a hint of fear. They were all acutely aware that uncovering Lily's stories could lead them to revelations they weren't entirely prepared to face. Marge clutched Sarah's shoulder. "Let us make this a community thing. We can gather everyone, find Lily's favorite spots, and turn this hunt into something bigger than any of us imagined." Sarah felt a swell of warmth at Marge's words. This could bring everyone together, a testament to Lily's impact, something that would remind them all of the ties they shared, but deep down, a little knot twisted in Sarah's stomach. What if they discovered things about Lily that painted her in an unexpected light? Would they still see her in the same way? A sense of uncertainty loomed in the air as the group began to brainstorm. Sarah caught sight of that red envelope glimmering in the fading sunlight. The question burned in her mind: what else had Lily hidden? Could this be just the beginning of more secrets waiting to unravel? What if uncovering those truths changed the very fabric of their lives? The journey lay ahead, but how well would they weather the storm? The sun dipped low in the sky, casting a golden hue over Rosie's diner as the anticipation crackled in the air. Sarah stood alongside her friends, hearts beating in sync as they formed a plan. The weight of Lily's words danced around them like fireflies, illuminating the path ahead. They were on a mission not just to uncover old stories but to strengthen the bonds that tied their community together. As they set out, Sarah felt a wave of resolve wash over her. She found herself side by side with Michael, whose determination mirrored her own. "Are you ready for this?" he asked, a spark of excitement lighting up his expression. "More than ever," Sarah replied, her voice firm. "This isn't just about finding Lily. It's about all of us. It's about hope and healing." Their first stop was the old park where they unearthed Lily's treasures. The laughter of children echoed through the air, a vivid reminder of joy and innocence. As they gathered, everyone, children tugged at their parents' hands, delighted to explore the hidden corners of their town. Each moment felt like a step toward rekindling the stories that connected them. They fanned out, each group claiming a spot with purpose. Sarah and Michael headed towards the library, where Lily had spent countless afternoons dreaming and scribbling notes. The worn wooden doors creaked open and the musty smell of old books enveloped them, a comforting embrace. "Look at all these titles," Sarah said, her fingers trailing along the spines. "So much wisdom in here. It feels like a treasure trove." Michael smiled, excitement mingling with nostalgia. "Let us find the librarian, she might have some stories about Lily." They approached the desk, where an elderly woman, Ms. Weller, greeted them. "Oh, I remember Lily," Ms. Weller exclaimed, her eyes twinkling. "She was always reading and writing, full of dreams. She brought life into these walls." Sarah's heart swelled. "Do you have anything of hers? Perhaps notes or sketches?" "Actually," Ms. Weller said, rummaging through a nearby drawer, "I have something. A book she left here years ago, filled with her stories and thoughts. We never could let it go, hoping she'd come back and reclaim it." As Ms. Weller handed over the delicate book, Sarah felt a rush of emotion. This was a tangible link to everything Lily had been, and now, to everything they hoped to achieve. The group huddled around, eager to uncover the pages filled with dreams that had slipped into silence. "What if we read a story in the park?" Jake chimed in, his youthful enthusiasm contagious. "It'll bring everyone together." The idea sparked a fire within Sarah. "Let us do it. Let us gather everyone at the park and celebrate Lily's legacy." As they left the library, energized by their discoveries, Sarah felt the weight of their shared purpose. The gathering at the park blossomed into an event that filled the air with laughter, stories, and nostalgia. The community came alive with shared memories of Lily, of how she had touched their lives. They read from the delicate book tales of friendship, dreams, and laughter. The words resonated deep within their hearts, stirring up an understanding of the struggles they all faced together. Amidst the warmth and solidarity, Michael stood beside Sarah, leaning closer. "This feels right, doesn't it?" he murmured. "Yes," she replied softly. "This is how we transform fear into strength." As twilight descended, people began to share their own stories, moments of love, loss, and everything in between. The park filled to the brim with voices, laughter echoing and intertwining like a melody. The unity they had once feared had come to fruition, allowing healing to seep into the cracks of their hearts, but just as hope seemed to drown out the shadows, Sarah caught sight of Marge, standing back with a look of unease. Confusion clouding her features, Marge stepped forward, clutching a different envelope tightly. "Marge, what's wrong?" Sarah asked, noticing the hesitance in her expression. It's another letter," Marge said, voice trembling. It was hidden with Lily's diary. "I didn't know whether to share it." Silence blanketed the gathering as all eyes turned towards Marge, curiosity and concern etched in their expressions. Sarah felt her heart pound. What secrets lurked within those words? Marge took a deep breath, her voice steadying. "I think we need to hear it. It might help us understand her struggles more deeply." Nervously, Marge unfolded the letter, the same red hue as the envelope that had first pulled them into this journey. "Dear friends," she began, voice wavering. "If you're reading this, I hope you've discovered all the beautiful pieces of our town." But as she read on, the words shifted from nostalgia to pain. Lily spoke of her struggles with loneliness, of feeling like an outsider in moments when she sought connection the most. Her voice captured the heaviness of isolation and doubt, a stark contrast to the laughter and memories they had just shared. "She felt alone," Sarah whispered, glancing at her friends, stunned by the weight of Lily's disclosure. Tears brimmed in Marge's eyes. "But she writes about courage, about not letting fear silence our voices. She believed we could create a place of belonging if we opened our hearts to one another." As the crowd absorbed Lily's words, Sarah felt a wave of understanding wash over her. The pain and joy they had shared tethered them in ways they could never have imagined. This was the true spirit of community, not just the sunshine-filled moments but the willingness to hold each other through storms. When Marge finished reading, silence hung in the air, but this time it wasn't heavy. It was still and contemplative. Then, one by one, hands went up, stories poured out. Before long, more voices joined in, recalling not just Lily's light but also their own shadows. Each tale painted a fuller picture of what it meant to belong. With renewed energy, they pledged to continue this cycle of sharing, of embracing vulnerabilities. They would create a festival, a celebration not only of Lily's stories but of their intertwining lives, an annual gathering that would keep their community alive and flourishing. As they stood together, Sarah felt the warmth of unity embrace her like a favorite blanket. "We're going to be all right," she whispered, a radiant smile blooming on her face. Michael looked at her, admiration shining in his eyes. "Absolutely. We're just getting started." The dust of the past had settled, revealing a clear path to the future. They transformed the heartache of one story into a collective journey, inviting all to participate in healing. As the stars glimmered overhead, a shared understanding radiated within that open space, binding them all in a promise to not only remember but also to uplift each other, wrapping each individual thread into a beautiful tapestry of togetherness. And in that moment, under the bright shining stars, Sarah realized that with each connection they forged, enormous possibilities awaited them. They were no longer simply a diner caught in the ebb and flow of time, they were a community ready to thrive. So, what are you waiting for? It's time to support this journey. You need to subscribe now to keep following these incredible stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support, it really matters. Comment below with your thoughts about this heartwarming transformation. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this change. Together, we can uplift our community and create a world full of love and connection.